Hey, Bomb Squad, Dan here. Have you been thinking about starting a podcast, but you don't know where to begin? Are you completely clueless? Are you completely lost? If so, you're in luck because I have the solution for you. It's Anchor by Spotify, the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Anchor has the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. We use it, and you should too. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and start your podcast today. You got it, kid. That's what's coming up on The Art of Bombing, episode 254.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Welcome to an all-new episode of The Art of Bombing. It is me, your host, Dan Bublitz Jr., and with me, as always, is my cohort, co-host, and producer, Josh Shirley. How are you on this fine day, this fine week?
Oh, fantastic. Hey, I got a question from my son. Wasn't sure how to handle it. Are you ready?
Uh-oh. Let's hear this. I don't know if I'm one that should be doing anything, have any opinions related to children. But
yeah,
go for
I
it.
don't know, man. I'm just putting it out there. Maybe some comments will come in on Facebook to help me field this one. But he asked me, hey, how many kids do you have to have before you're a Mormon?
Oh, well, I mean, technically, no kids. You don't have to have kids to be Mormon.
I think that's the right answer.
I mean, you're part of. I mean, you're Mormon because of religious reasons, right? Like
that's right.
I was gonna
that's
say,
right.
Yeah.
I think he's seen some stuff where, like, either there's Mormons that we know who have a lot of kids, or he's watching like shows over his mom's shoulder. Like she'll have something on when she's cooking. There's all these shows like where it's like a family, like a polygamous family. That's like it's supposed to be illegal, but apparently there's shows about it. Like the cops are having a hard time tracking these people down, I guess. But I obviously know that that's extremely atypical of the Mormon faith. I know that people who are Mormons don't have a bunch of wives or whatever.
Yeah,
that's just like a really extreme.
Yep, it is. Yep.
Deal.
Yep.
But he's getting introduced to it in a way, I guess, where he's like, so like, are we going to be a Mormon family if we have enough kids? Like he thinks that's like a, stage a family gets into based on how big it is.
Oh, well, I hope, did you answer him, or are you still trying to figure out how to have the conversation?
I just ran away.
Okay. So you're still trying to figure out how to have a conversation.
Well, I think I got something to work with, which is, hey dude, it really doesn't correlate to the number of kids you have.
Yeah. Yeah. There are plenty of Catholics out there that have a bunch of kids too.
I'm sure there's atheists and Satanists that like don't have that have a lot of kids. It's just, it doesn't correspond, but I think in his mind it does. Like, okay, that's
I can see that. It's a young young mind. Well, I'd say this. We'll do an action item here. If you're listening and you want to weigh in on this, on Josh's dilemma, just go to the Facebook group, the Art of Bombing Bomb Squad Facebook group. The link is always in the show notes as well, so you can just scroll down to the show notes and click that. If you're already a member, you're good. If you're not, join. And if you want to weigh in on this conversation, help Josh out.
Yeah, guys, help me be a father. Help me do the right thing here.
Help him figure out how he explains this this scenario, this situation to his kid in a way that he'll be able to understand. Oh, that's great.
There you go.
Well, I don't really have this week. I don't have anything really to promote. I'm kind of easing up on my road gigs and stuff. Because I'm started my new job and that's been going pretty well, but I'm kind of taking it easy, so I don't have anything like right in the works, I guess, to promote on this episode. What about you? Do you have any shows coming up?
Yeah, going to be back at Hazel's this weekend on Saturday night with Bryce Stanley headlining, and this is if you're in the Western Missouri, Eastern Kansas vicinity, then head on up there and check us out. We're going to be in St. Joseph, Missouri. It's about an hour north of Kansas City, and we will be there rocking at Hazel's and having a good time. So if you're into comedy and you also want to enter to win a free Hazel's mug or a free gift card to Hazel's, those are going to be door prizes that you get by virtue of buying a ticket. So get there and win.
You have like one of the few shows that does door prizes, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Buy a ticket and you get registered to win some prizes, and you could win some cool stuff. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, you're already winning by coming in and seeing expert level comedy.
Exactly.
But as a cake topper,
little added bonus,
you'll get some stuff that does not belong on top of a cake, I guess.
But it'll come in useful for drinking some of their delicious coffee and some of their delicious handcrafted cocktails that they serve there. Because that's the thing. Yes. It is Hazel's is a coffee shop, but you can get some cocktails at this particular one. So it's not just all coffee.
Coffee and bar is
that's
how
right.
It's described on the Goog.
Heck yeah. Well, that sounds like a good time. So, yeah. Well, we have a great episode this week. We have Tyrone Thornhill on the podcast this week, another comic who I had a great conversation with at the Plano Comedy Festival. You are going to, if you're an avid listener to the podcast, you are going to probably get sick of us talking about it because I recorded a whole bunch while I was there.
Yeah.
And that's what's coming up in the next few weeks is all these episodes. So keep that in mind. But yeah, we had a great conversation. There was a lot of great talking points that we had. So a lot of great information in this episode. Yeah, we talked about all kinds of different things. But one thing that kind of want to highlight, talking about things you can do when you get on stage to kind of prepare for your performance. Little things like where making sure that the audience can hear you, see you, things like that.
Yeah, I thought, you guys just at the top of the interview, like my mind clicked into place. Oh yeah, you really have to have some basics. Like I was at a show once, and I do my set. I'm not real happy with how it went, and I recorded the set, but I come off stage and I'm just kind of feeling all right, yeah, and I'm not really listening to what the MC's saying in the transition, so I just forget about that part. I'm kind of just focused on like, why didn't this, what am I? I'm just analyzing. I'm beginning.
Yep,
to analyze,
you're in that
right?
analyze mode. Yep,
totally. Which every comic we've ever had on the show goes into that mode, but I think the real value in having a recording device when you go up there is that you can listen back to it. And I learned something really basic, which is on the list of basic things. I go back and I play the recording, and the first thing I hear the MC say is, "Hey, I'm going to turn the mic up. We're having a really hard time hearing back there where the audience is. Can you guys hear me? Oh yeah." And he does a little sound check. And then like, well, when I say first, like it was after my set. So let me clarify. Like, I misspoke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was like,
explain,
wait, he said that before you went up, or he said it after. Okay.
Like, so I listen to my set, and I always set my phone down to record it in the audience. I don't actually take it up there with me. I want to hear what it sounds like from their vantage point. It's really hard to hear.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I think is important, is making sure you're holding the microphone right. If you're not hearing the comic before you, that may play into it.
Yep.
If people can't see you and you're not standing in the light, if you didn't bring the things with you that you need to have.
Yep. And sometimes you perform in a situation where you're not going to have, those things because you're not in control. Like if you're doing a spot on somebody else's show and it's kind of in their control, but things like that, I've definitely seen where you'll perform in a space where there ain't really no lighting, and they'll have one like light come directly down from the ceiling to light up the area. And if you step, either side away from the light, you end up you're out of the light, and then the crowd can't hear you. And having that mic technique is important too, because like you said, they got to be able to hear you, but also you don't want to blow out their ears either. Knowing where to hold the mic, especially during like in when you're doing something where there might be an inflection or you're getting really loud, you got to remember to move the microwave. You need to remove the microphone away from the waves of your sound waves.
Hey. Yeah, and guys, don't bring a microwave on stage.
That's right. We want sound waves, not microwaves.
That's right. That might not get you invited back.
Yeah, exactly. Unless, well, it might. I mean, if you're using that microwave to cook everybody some snacks, who knows?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess there's a practice. Hey, does anybody need anything heated up while I'm up here?
I'm gonna do a tight 5, and in the meantime, let's thaw up this turkey.
Yeah. I'm doing a tight 5, and that is also how long this popcorn takes.
And we're gonna have delicious snacks right after my set.
Yeah, so I thought that was something that was highlighted, but there's I think this is a great episode that people are going to have a great time listening to. I think Tyrone's a lot of fun as a guest, and I thought we hit on a lot of really fun things, not just these small things. Yeah, but just having the advantage of perspective, like just understanding how, when you're watching and going back and reviewing yourself, that you have to understand, when you're better, and how you can cut your teeth in front of different kinds of crowds, and how that's important early on.
Yeah. Along with that too, moving around within comedy, we talk about it in the episode, but he just moved to New York within the last year. So, it was, when we talk about how that's like starting over. So there's a lot of great stuff, and I think we should get to it, don't you?
You got it, kid.
All right. You called me kid. Man, you're going to be my best friend. Makes me sound young. All right, well, here's our conversation with Tyrone. Enjoy. Hey, Bomb Squad, Dan here, and I wanted to let you know that we've completely overhauled the Art of Bombing Patreon page. We've made some changes, improvements, and added some cool new perks that we think you'll enjoy, such as early access to new episodes. They're going to be ad-free, host-free. They get right to the conversation. Another cool perk that we've added are re-released episodes. That's right, every week we're re-releasing a new old episode of the podcast. Right now on the Patreon feed, you can get episodes 1 through 9, and every week we're going to be re-releasing a new old episode. Another cool perk that we're going to be providing are resources, comedy resources such as email templates, checklists, and all kinds of fun stuff that are going to be coming from the Between Bombs series. We're going to be doing monthly and quarterly Q&As and hangs, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go to our Patreon page, subscribe now. It's patreon.com/artofbombingpod and sign up right now.
And now it's time for the stand-up soundbite.
No, I love kids. I really do love kids. And one of the things I love most about them is that I don't have any right now.
No, I have a lot of friends who have kids, and they're always trying to talk me into it. And I'm like, all right, I'll humor you. I'm listening. Sell me on this idea. And they're like, well, you can't explain it. You just don't know how wonderful it is until you have your own. What a terrible way to sell something. Like, buy this anything. Why? You'll know after you buy it. But they have to say it like that. They did it like if people were forced to tell the truth about it, then we wouldn't be procreating. Like, if I could sit down with one of those friends and have a real conversation, it would be like, okay, how much money would it cost to have one of these things? I'd be like, oh, all of it. It's going to cost all of it. And will I get a return on this investment? No, you won't. As a matter of fact, as it grows, it will require more of your money. Okay. Well, does it like do anything? I mean, does it clean a house or anything? Most likely not. As a matter of fact, your house probably won't be clean for another 18 years. Well, what happens after 18 years? Well, that's when you can legally stop feeding it.
It's the art of bombing.
I'm not much of a yeller, so you won't have to worry about that.
Oh, good. Well, you can yell. Just move the mic away.
Right, exactly. People, I definitely run into people that are like, they want to yell closer to the microphone.
Yeah,
it's like,
and then just blow everybody's ears out. It's like, come on. You got to have a mic technique here. If you're going to yell, that's fine. Just move the mic.
Exactly.
And if you're going to whisper, move it closer.
Just
I always find that
right?
funny when people, I see, especially like newer comics, you'll see them, they'll talk, they have like a soft voice and
right.
like a mellow cadence, if you will, and then they'll have the microphone like way down to the middle of their chest, and it's like, you got to amplify that. Nobody can hear you. And then they wonder why nobody's laughing at their jokes or whatever.
Right,
it's like, it's because they can't hear you.
I've seen people get stuck in that choice they make very early on, where they're like, "I'm going to hold the mic here as a comic," and then
that's the only thing I'm going to do.
Yeah. Like, this is the thing that I'm committing to, and it's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, and then they get mad because or get upset because they feel like they're bombing, and it's like, well, it's not that. Yeah, your material's probably fine. You just nobody can hear you.
Hearing it is an important thing. Yes.
That's the thing about comedy. It's a two-way thing. It's you got to be able to audibly tell your jokes, and the audience needs to audibly be able to hear them.
It's those little details where people get tripped up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're here at the Plano Comedy Festival. Did you perform last night at all?
I did not perform last night.
You were just hanging out. That's what I thought.
Just getting the feel of the room and how
what
people are doing.
What are you on today?
So I'm not on anything today. So, tomorrow at 7 at the Plano House of Comedy, and then Sunday at 5 at the Plano House of Comedy. I think you're on that one, right?
No,
you're on.
No,
this.
I'm tonight. I'm on the Blue Show tonight.
Nice.
And then I'm on a show at the Performing Arts Center tomorrow on Saturday. So,
So, I'll see you on that Blue Show tonight. I'm looking forward to that.
You're gonna be over there?
Yeah, I'll be hanging out.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. Yeah, they got a lot of shows going on at this festival.
And I'm pretty impressed. I mean, just how it's all set up. I mean, shout out to all the people at Plano who have been working so hard on this, because the venues are cool, and so far everybody's just having a good time.
Have you checked out the other venue yet? I haven't.
Not yet. Just based on what I saw at Plano House of Comedy, I'm like, this is a cool spot.
Oh, absolutely.
And I do like the black box setup.
Yeah, well, and I guess they have like 3 different rooms over there set up. Like they're running 3 shows simultaneously at that other venue.
Okay, that's where they're doing all the improv, and sketch and stuff.
Yep. Like tonight, I guess they have a magician and hypnotist and a stand-up show all at 7. I was like, wow, this is a lot going on.
Well, I was planning on hanging out at the Plano House of Comedy, but magician, you say?
Right? It's like I'm gonna try to go to the House of Comedy for the early show because they have a happy hour show. And I'm gonna try to go over there and watch some of the comics there. But the person who's staying with me, who we're sharing a room with, he's on the 7 o'clock show over at the other place. So I'm like, I gotta try to get over there. That's the only bad part about festivals, when they're in different locations and they're running things simultaneously, trying to run all over.
Right.
Like, oh no, I want to catch it all, but I can't.
Having to choose which one of your friends you like the most.
Yeah,
exactly.
Kind of thing. You got to be selective. Fortunately, these venues aren't that far apart from each other, so that's good.
Right.
That helps. They're easy drives.
Yeah, everything here is like no traffic and 45 miles an hour plus. So it's like takes no time to get anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unless you're walking. And then for some reason, those 5-minute drives are like an hour walk. It just blows my mind. Like I was talking to Justin yesterday at the House of Comedy about that because I was like, I was thinking about walking down here and it was like an hour, but somehow it's a 5-minute drive from my hotel. Like that makes no sense to me.
It's insane, especially I live in Brooklyn, New York, so I'm used to everything being so walkable.
And
but I'm also used to
I'm
used to seeing something like 2 miles on my phone and being like, well, that's going to take forever. But then I'm like, oh yeah, cars and roads. Like I forgot about when cities are built for that, it's really quick to get around.
It makes way more sense. They're built to get around in a car, probably not built around to walk. That's probably why it's an hour to walk.
Exactly, yeah.
To do a 5-minute drive takes an hour to walk.
The sidewalks are just parallel with the highway. That's all it is here.
And it's not even a sidewalk. It's literally just gravel.
Yeah. Or
it's
some
the shoulder.
Yeah, some beaten path through the manicured grasses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like when I got to the hotel yesterday, there's a grocery store over there, and I wanted to pick up some supplies, and the lady that was at the front desk was like, yeah, it's over here. Your best bet is just to cut through this parking lot. Otherwise, it's going to take you forever to walk there because you have to go up around to the sidewalks and it's way around. Just cut through the parking lot.
Yeah, best bet is to just buy a car.
Like, great advice.
Yeah.
Having a car comes in handy.
Right.
I'd just been in my car I left Wednesday, and I just drove till I was tired. I left Wednesday afternoon, drove till I was tired, pulled over, slept at a truck stop, got up and drove the rest of the way. So I pretty much spent 2 days in my car. So I was like, I'm going to walk over there because I need exercise. I need to stretch my legs because I've been cramped up for 2 days.
Put in the work, man. You're the real MVP. 2 days of driving. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, it's not so bad when you can break it up. I mean, a lot of times, I can do that in one day. Like Sunday, going back, I'm going to be doing it in one day. It's not going to be a 2-day drive. I'm driving straight through.
Just want to hit your bed. That's it.
Yep. Just want to get home, into my bed. There's something nice about when you're on the road for comedy. There's something real, just being able to go home and sleep in your own bed is just like the most amazing feeling.
Yeah, it's like after those, after the performance highs and the adrenalines and stuff, after that stuff all just wears off, all you want to do is sleep.
Go home
in your bed.
In your bed, not just sleep, because you can sleep wherever. It's specifically in your bed.
Yeah, that sleep other places. It ain't the same sleep. Nope. It's a different brand of sleep. We want the good old home brand bed sleep.
Yep, good old. It's pretty amazing. Amazing feeling. It's funny because especially when I drive a lot when I go do stuff, and when I get home, I'm just like wiped, and it's so great to just be like in my bed, and then the next day I'm just wiped, but I'm still in my bed.
This is when you're talking to like a fellow old comic. We're like, how good is sleep?
Yeah. It's sleep in my bed is amazing. Well, and I don't know how it is for you when you're on the road, but for me, I have an issue. Like, I have a hard time sleeping on the road. Like, it's not so much that I have insomnia, but I don't need a lot of sleep. So, like, I can sleep for 4 or 5 hours, and then I'm fine.
Okay.
And that's even at home. I'll sleep good for those 4 or 5 hours, but I don't need a ton of sleep. But when I'm on the road, I don't know if it's just because of the adrenaline from shows and like the anxiety of things that could go wrong or whatever it is, but like sleeping and then sleep on top of that, you're in a strange place. Trying to sleep just is like, yeah. And then I sleep even less than when I sleep at home.
Right. And it's like you get sleep, but you don't necessarily get rest.
Yes.
So
that is it. Yes.
Yeah. So it feels different. You wake up and you're like, ugh.
Yes.
What is
that?
This?
That's a good way to describe it. You're sleeping, but you're not getting rested. Yeah. And that's exactly how it feels.
Yep.
So then when you get home, you're just like,
rest these old bones at home.
Which is always amazing. Now, do you work the road quite a bit or a little bit? Because you're based in Brooklyn, you said?
Based in Brooklyn, yeah. Not so much over the last couple of years. Everything changed. Everything changed. And really what I did was I made the move to Brooklyn, to New York, so I could do as much comedy in as many different spaces as possible without having to do too much traveling.
Yep, absolutely. Where did you move from?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, okay.
Which,
wow.
Not a very well-known comedy city.
No.
It was
Florida's like its own scene altogether.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and there's a lot of states that are like that, where like there's different little hubs within the state, but like the whole state is pretty much the scene.
Right, exactly. And it also, there's like a different hierarchy in those kind of states. You have the people who are kind of running it and everything, and you have the little different communities and pockets that pop up, around. And Florida is very much like that. It was a fun place to cut my teeth, and really, I did 6 years of comedy in Florida, so. You learn a lot. You learn different crowds because the diversity of crowds in Florida is
because you also have all that. You have like tourism and stuff too, and that really
tourists. You have like communities that are nothing but old folks.
Yep.
You have places that are mostly black and brown. You have places that are mostly white. It's just, it's like a little like a little microcosm of the entire country. So it was useful in that way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You can definitely build some skills, gain some skills and tools when you're performing for audiences that are, diversified like that.
Yeah, and you find out what kind of different laughs are out there. You know what I mean? Like a joke, a certain joke in a crowd that is like, I'm biracial, and I talk a lot about my experience. So I do dip into race, and I dip into social issues and stuff. And a joke that works a certain way in a room where the crowd is diverse or the crowd is mixed or the crowd is black hits completely different in a crowd where you have like a bunch of older white folks.
Yep.
Who still are laughing, but like laughing in a
different way.
Almost a different language. It's like, oh, this is interesting. A new perspective on this, how this joke might be received,
Yeah, that's interesting. Because you see like the diversity in crowds and stuff, but I haven't really thought about how their laugh can be like, they can still be enjoying it, but it's still like different than other rooms and stuff. That's an interesting perspective on that. What do you feel like you learn most, like being able to do those rooms?
I think really it helped me to figure out the type of comic that I wanted to be. When you're able to have access to so many different crowds, you can kind of start to see the different paths opening up.
Yep.
So you're like, oh, I could go down this path, and I can be, a little more blue, and I could be a little more, kind of that classic club comedy feel, or I can go down this path, and I can be, sort of a little bit more of a storyteller, or maybe get into some things that are more personal to me, which is sort of the path that I've chosen. I make it a little bit more personal, a little bit more. Sometimes I'll go into storytelling, that sort of thing. But there's. What it really taught me was how to be as honest with myself as possible. Because one thing that I learned or that I experienced early on was when I would go to a different room, I'm like, what do I need to do to get these people to like me? What do I need to do to get this audience on my side? Now it's more, I'm going to introduce these people to me and my comedy. And we're going to find that little middle ground where everybody's happy with each other and we're all having a great time. So it's more about being intentionally myself. As I go to different places with different crowds, different expectations, things like that.
Yep. How do you feel? Do you feel like you've settled? How long have you been in New York now?
It's less than a year, actually.
Oh, okay. So you're fairly new. How has that been as an adjustment going from, you're in New York's diverse, obviously. There's a lot of diversity there
Very
too.
much.
But it's a different animal than like when you're in Florida, you're going around to all kinds of different cities and towns and doing comedy. And then you come here and everything's like in the metro, like, and maybe it does feel like you're going to a whole nother like town sometimes. But how has that been for a transition to like get used to that?
It's been great. I really, really like the comedy scene in New York, which, I mean, imagine that. Like, I like the New York comedy scene.
Comedy in New York?
Yeah. But I was like, okay, this is where I need to decide to step my game up. Or, do I just find whatever way to make it easy where I was before? You know what I mean? And for a minute, it was kind of a little bit of a shock to my own psyche, because I was like, wow, I'm looking at all these people around me, and like I see them doing just this amazing comedy, and like I'm judging myself against these people who have been in New York for a decade or 20 years or whatever, and I'm like, man, I'm not that good yet. And it took me a second to just kind of step back and be like, okay, this is where I really focus it and really start to become myself. So as I'm doing sets, as I'm writing jokes, I'm not only thinking like, is this going to be funny? Is this going to work on stage? But it's like, when I eventually get to do late night, or when I eventually get to do a special, like, is this going to be something that makes it, or is this just, a win the crowd over type thing? It's like you start to build your arsenal almost with more, with more specificity.
Yep.
Like, I want this joke to do this thing, and I want this joke to do this thing, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, really kind of tooling it out. That's interesting too, with like thinking about your jokes on, with the mindset of, is this going to be something that'll be in a late night set or a special or just a joke you tell? Because, a lot of comedians don't have that forethought. We're just like, I just got to go here, perform, and get a laugh,
Right.
And we're not thinking about, well, will this be good enough to be in that 5 minutes? And can I get it there? Because, a lot of people, we don't think about, I'm going to get, but ultimately we all want it, but we don't think about what's going to happen when we get it.
Well, I think part of it is almost like the superstition that we have, where if we start to talk about these big goals and stuff, we're going to somehow,
jinx ourselves.
Or even like, I've only been a comic for, 5 years or 10 years, or like, whatever it is. And you're like, do I deserve to be talking like this? It's that weird thing that comics have where we're always kind of judging ourselves and thinking about where we are compared to other people and stuff. So,
yeah, I still do that, and not just like comics that have been doing it a while. I'll see a comic that's only been doing comedy for 2 or 3 years, and they're like just killing it and way ahead in their career than I am, and I'm like, and it's not that they're they don't deserve it. That's not.
Right,
it's
right.
like they're good, and I'm like, well, I don't think I'll be that good, so maybe I should just go away.
Yeah, but then at the
like
same
they're
time,
so talented. Maybe I should just get out of here.
It's and especially when you look when that person is like 23 years old, and you're like, oh man, they have the stamina to outpace me.
Oh, absolutely.
But then there is one of the things about where comedy is now, whether it's through things like podcasting or even like online comedy, has kind of changed the game.
Absolutely.
TikTok has changed the game and stuff, which is not really anywhere I'm like, this is not my lane. So
I've been dabbling with social media like TikTok and IG Reels, like putting content out there, but it's not like I don't think I'll ever be like what some of these other ones are doing. Like, I can put some stand-up clips out, but I'm not going to be doing like sketch video, like silly videos or whatever they're doing. And more props to them that they're doing it and getting a big following, and then that's leading to them doing stand-up. But I'm too old and don't have the time or patience.
Well, what I have noticed with a lot of the folks who come in and they'll have these huge followings on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, they'll put out a lot of like crowd work videos or some of their highlight some of their bits that they love. But when it comes down to it, when a club is like, oh, you have this many followers, so we're going to book you and we're going to put you on stage because we think you're going to bring in people. So we're going to book you to do 30 minutes or whatever. All of a sudden they're like, okay, I've been in this game for 5 years. I have 200,000 followers, but I have about 5 good minutes of comedy. You know what I mean? And it's and this is not shade. This is just kind of like, how.
No, it's an observation. That happens more times than not.
Right.
And I mean, and you even see it with not just comedians, but like people who become like, well, and now it's more TikTok would be the version, but where it was before, it was YouTube stars. You'd have these people who literally did not ever perform or do comedy, but they blew up on YouTube and had all these followings, and then they started getting booked to headline clubs.
Right.
And they really didn't have no material. They weren't like they could sell it out, and their fans would come support them, but it wasn't stand up in the sense that it was jokey because they didn't have that. They don't.
And that's when they find out just how difficult it can be to make an audience laugh in a certain amount of time. With when you have this weird atmosphere where they're just like, all right, here we go, this is your time. It's now or never. It's a whole different ball game from what they're used to. Which, it's a good lesson to learn. But because the club's trying to fill seats and sell drinks.
Oh, absolutely. And from a person who has a background in business, I see that. There's a lot of comics that'll get mad. They'll be like, "Oh, they're just got these YouTube stars taking my stage time, blah 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 blah." And it's like, yeah, but they're also, if that YouTube star wasn't selling out the venue, they might not be there next week, so you can do your show.
Exactly.
So
they did bring the audience.
There's and if that YouTube star is keeping that comedy club open, so you could potentially perform there down the road, you should be thankful.
Yeah.
You don't have to like respect their art or you don't have to like their material or whatever, but at least show a little respect to that because they're keeping the doors open.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I've learned is that just kind of, I see these avenues, and even though one may not be for me, I still respect it because
absolutely.
this is there's no, what I've learned is there's no wrong way to do this. Well, I mean, like if you're an asshole.
The way I look at it with it, you're right. There's no right or wrong way to do it, but there are things that can help speed it up or hinder you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that being like a complete asshole is something that can definitely hinder your growth. But
depending on what comedy scene you're in, I've seen that can be a very useful thing for some people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wow, this is crazy. But, it's, I talked about being intentional in my comedy earlier, and it was once I knew that my path was going to be a little bit longer than the viral fame path, or getting a bunch of followers on YouTube, whatever. Once I learned it was going to be a little bit longer than that, it was okay for me to see those people enjoy their success and enjoy their time without feeling anger and hatred and stuff, and just being like, all right, but I'm working on something else.
Yeah, I'm doing my own thing.
Right, I'm one of those.
I'm on my own path.
Yeah, I'm one of those old for the love of the game.
It's kind of that the saying, keep your eye on the prize.
Exactly.
Stop looking at what other people are getting and just concentrate on what you're after.
Yeah. Find out what you want and then go after that. You can't just want everything everybody else has.
Oh,
it doesn't work that way. So let them have their thing. That's cool.
You're gonna have a lot of disappointment when you're looking at your peers and being like, "Well, I could have had that. I should have." And no, you're just gonna be sad. Just we're all on our own path. We're all, there's room. There's enough pie for everybody.
Yes.
It's not gonna run out. You just go do your thing. You'll get to wherever you need to go. But going back to that, the same thing, and on the other side of the coin, a lot of those comics don't have their own goals.
Right.
That's what you run into. And it's like, if you're not setting any goals, you're not going to get any of those things. Those comics that are getting things, 9 times out of 10, I would venture to say they have a goal. They're trying to get somewhere, and that's how they got that. It wasn't just like they were casually moping along doing comedy, and then suddenly they got a thing. I mean, that does happen.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens all the time, but it's not, more times than not. The people who are getting things, they're working hard.
Right.
They're going out. They're doing mics every night. They're writing all the time. They're doing the thing. They're taking the time to make the videos to put on there and try to and build that engagement. Do the things and setting goals.
Yep.
And then there's the comics that complain about them, who are like, and then you ask them, well, what do you want out of comedy? I'm like, do you have a short-term goal, long-term goal? Gonna go try a new joke tomorrow. It's like,
like there's
it's like,
a lot
all right, well, that's why you're not where they're at.
Right. Yeah, and so many of us got into comedy with this idea that like you get into it, you be funny on stage, and then somebody's like, you got it, kid, and that's how comedy works. You know what I mean? Like
that's right. Somebody, you're gonna get off stage, and some guy in a like a derby or a fedora is gonna come. You got it, kid.
Yep, exactly.
Meet me over here in the
I've
corner.
seen a lot of comedians in my day, and you got the stuff. Like that's
I'll sign right here, and they're just gonna whip a contract out of their coat jacket.
Right. And it's we go in with that idea. So like a lot of people don't go in with a plan or even just a loose kind of objective. You know? So it's just, I'm going to do what I do until somebody gives me something. And then a lot of the times the something that you get, it's like, I don't even really like this. Yeah. It's because you don't even know what you want yet.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and then you do things and then you look back on it. I've been fortunate and I've had some luck with stuff and I've got to do some cool things. And in some of those things I look back on, I'm like, I got it. And I'm happy that I got it. But I'm like, it didn't necessarily do a ton for my career. But also in the same token, it's like, well, I don't think I was ready. I wish I would have got that now, because now I'm in a better place that I could have took a better advantage of that opportunity than when I got the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I've got a couple of those without a doubt. Because I was one of those people. I started late in life. I started comedy at 32.
Close enough. I started at 31.
Okay,
literally a month before my 32nd birthday.
Nice.
So,
but
so pretty much 32.
It's different when you start a little bit later. But what I did, what happened was I had this life experience I could draw from and stuff. So as a comic, I started and started off like really well. You know what I mean? I would get up and I would do well in most places, and like, people were like, oh, you're good, and also it's great. So I did start getting some of those opportunities a little bit too early, because even though I was decent at comedy, I may not have been at the level where I was. I got to do Laughaholics in Brooklyn, New York, early, like in a couple years into my comedy career. And it's nothing big. It was like a local TV kind of thing, and like, you know, they do all right on YouTube and stuff. But my set that's on there is not my favorite set in the world, and it's like I look there, and if I were to watch that video back, which I don't, because I don't have that in me, but if I do watch it back, I'm like, man, I know exactly what I would do different now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. And it's hard not to think about that.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Mike Kaplan was on the podcast a while ago, and we were talking about that because we were talking about specials and, you know, when they come out versus when you film them and things like that. Sometimes there's a big time between that. And he, you know, he had a good point about how you got to look at it in the perspective of, well, at that time, that was as good as I was at that time.
Yes.
And you can't let that bring you down, because now you want to be better than you were at that time. So if you're better than you are now, you should be thankful that, you know, you need to be grateful that you're better.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be a year and a half after that came out. You don't want to be at the same point you were when that came out. And I was just like, wow, you're blowing my mind here. But it's hard not to like look at a video and be like, oh man, if I did that now, I'd crush so hard.
Right. Yeah. So let me go back. That's like,
can I just try it? Can I just do this again?
Yeah. That's like being on a high school basketball team and being like, if I could just play in middle school right now, I would dunk on everybody. You know what I mean? You don't want to do that. You don't want to be the high school kid on the middle school team.
And be like, yeah, because in middle school I was 5'5", and now I'm 6'5".
Right. Yeah. I would crush it in middle school again.
Yeah, but that's the kicker. You have to be able to go back and still be your current height or whatever.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Just, life
you need
doesn't
those
work
current
that way.
skills, and it doesn't. No, and that's why it's also important to try to take advantage of when you get an opportunity to try to take advantage of it. But again, you're only going to be as good as you are at a certain time, and you hope to get better as you do it. The more you do it, and you gain more skills and tools and all the things, so you get better. So you'll never be able to, even now, we can get an opportunity now that's really good and do really well at it, and like get that late night set and just crush it.
Yeah. And
then 5 years from now, look back and be like, man, I wish I got that now, because now I would really crush it.
That's the
you're
hope.
Always going to be thinking that now I could really.
And that's
if you're not, then I feel like you're probably not evolving as a performer. You know what I mean? Like,
you have to, especially in a world like comedy. I mean, comedy is always evolving. Things are always changing. Look at how different the world is now than it was 3 years ago. Yeah, it's a completely different place.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
I've had to take the last year almost, and I've been doing shows here and there. I've just been a little bit picky about when I go up and where I go up and stuff. But like, this over the last year or so, I've been really just like kind of watching and just been like, man, this is just crazy. Like how much things are changing. And then you have people who are like really dug into like, it's going to go back. And they're just, there's no evolution there. There's no changing. They're
wrong. It's not going to
exactly.
Go back.
It's not. It's never
going to evolve. That's what happened. Especially with the pandemic, like you've seen a lot of people doing the like virtual comedy. Mm-hmm. People still do virtual comedy.
Yeah,
that's not going to go away. That is now part of comedy. And if you don't want to be part of it, that's fine. But it's the way it's going to be. It's a hybrid. Same with like we were talking about not doing stuff with TikTok and YouTube or Instagram or whatever, but the same thing. That's where comedy's going.
Yep.
Like people, whether we want to be part of it or not, that's where it's going.
Right.
It's gonna you either move with it or you get left behind.
Exactly. I mean, and there are tools like every time I think about like, I know that TikTok is valuable, and I know that it for a comic. I mean, a comic friend of mine who's about my age, he started a TikTok, and I mean, within about 2 weeks, he was like, "Oh man, I got like 1 million views on this one TikTok," and I was like, "Oh man, it sounds so great to get 1 million views on something."
Yeah,
but like just my reaction to TikTok is one of like I don't know. I would imagine I react the same way like a 60-year-old react to TikTok and just completely write it off and just like start to talk about my day and that kind of thing. But eventually, I'm going to have to let that go.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, because for the longest time, I was against it in the sense, and I was making jokes like during the pandemic when everything was shut down. A lot of people were jumping on TikTok and doing silly things because they had all the time in the world to do it. And I was over here making fun of them. I was over here like I would do tweets, be like, well, day blah 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 of the pandemic, I'm still not bored enough to join TikTok, like things like that, being really passive aggressive about it, and like making these jokes. And then I had a comic on the podcast, and he was like, you're being dumb, you need to be on it. It's he blew up on TikTok. I mean, he's already had some things where he was headlining shows and had done some TV, but he started a TikTok, and then that and now he's got people come to shows because of his TikTok and his following. But that the same thing with TikTok, which can be frustrating, is like you said, your friend has 1 million views, which is cool, but sometimes having 1 million views doesn't mean anything because they're not following through and following the account.
Exactly. Yeah, and
you can get 1 million views in a video and get like 2 followers out of it.
Yes, or like what? Maybe the people that saw that particular video weren't searching for it, and there's something there that they didn't like so much. Because that's another danger of TikTok. All of a sudden, your stuff's getting flagged, and I guess the word sex is not a very
there's a lot of words that get
like, and it's something like sex, and I'm like, what? So you gotta, I always laugh when I see a video of like, a grown man, and they're like, you see their captions, and when they get to the word sex, it's segs.
Like segs is the code word.
I giggle every time. It's
funny too because with that, they're the algorithms and the things searching for that. Eventually, that's going to be a bad word too because they're gonna. They're going to be able to spot that. Because you've turned it into a trend.
If we get nothing out of TikTok other than just a bunch of euphemisms for sex, I think we've milked it for all it's worth.
That is for sure. Oh man. Well, we got to talk about bombing too.
Oh yeah.
So I would love to hear your story of a time when you felt like you bombed really bad.
Yeah, so I alluded to the one at Laughaholics. I think that's a bomb for me. There were some laughs there, and it wasn't terrible, but it's out there. If you look up Laughaholics and Tyrone Thornhill on YouTube, you could see me bomb. So there's that. But I think my favorite and most important bomb was like very early on in my comedy career. The first open mic I did was so good. Like I was preparing. I had my set going. I mean, I was preparing like I was about to go and do late night. So my very first time I get up on stage, and it just is amazing. So I'm like, well, I've paid my dues. I've put my time in. So now I can just go up here. Now I can go up here and just give these people. Oh yeah, I mean you couldn't tell me shit after I did that. And I was like, oh man, I'm gonna go crush it. So yeah, so I'm like, well, obviously every time I get up on stage, it's gonna be like this. Obviously I needed to be humbled. I needed to be humbled very badly at that moment. And so I went to the same place, the next week. And I didn't really prepare because I was like, at this point in my career, I should be able to just get up there and talk. Yeah, because people want to hear my words. I'm basically George Carlin. You know what I mean? This is my career. So
I'm already a legend.
Yeah, like just they know me there. And the bartenders. I expected to walk in and the ticker tape and stuff like that. So
everybody's giving me high fives. They're just like, oh, look who came in. Are you gonna do a set?
People whispering like, oh, look, it's him. He was here last week. He was amazing. This is So
just a spot tonight.
Yeah. So I get up and I do my thing and I get up on stage with all of the confidence that I had not earned at any point, and just ate so much shit. It was like it had to. I wish I didn't have this one recorded. But it had to look like somebody just got attacked by like just ghosts. Because I was like, what is happening? I can't believe this is happening to me. I'm obviously so good at comedy. I'm obviously, my career is skyrocketing. I mean, I'm 2 weeks in, and already like I'm a legend. And I ate so much shit, man. Nobody laughed at anything. I look and I saw pity in the audience, which is something that I wasn't prepared for, and just knocked me down so many pegs. It was the most important bomb. I think it needed to happen. I needed to know that I was not good.
Yep. You needed to get humbled right away.
Exactly.
And I think that's why I don't like bringer shows because one of the there's a lot of reasons I don't like bringer shows, but one of the things about bringer shows is it gives comics a false sense of validation because your friends are there, your friends and family, so they're rooting for you. Even if they don't think you're funny, they're still going to be supportive. That's why they're there. And then when you actually have to go try to do real comedy outside of that, and then you realize, because then you typically, a lot of times they end up bombing and it's horrible. Yeah. But then it hurts even more. You know? And that's kind of the same situation with you. You did so well the first time. Then the second time it's like, ooh, this is not, and it probably hurt more than if you just would have had a mediocre set the first time you did it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, not necessarily bomb the first time, but if it would have just been mediocre or, or average or whatever, you'd been like, oh, that was fun. Yeah, okay, maybe I am on the side, and you start working, but
a little bit a little bit more realistic expectations for the next thing. Like, I was like, oh man, this is good. I was like, should I just like start reaching out to agents and managers now? Like, how does this work? Like, does Conan call me? Or
it's like when does somebody just come and knock on my door with a contract out?
Yeah, it's like, all right, I should be on my third special by now. Like this, it's the hubris that I had after that first attempt was wild, and everything about me that's rational knew that I should not have been that confident. But just the, you know how it is when you do really well and you're like, well, damn, that was really fun. Yep.
Did other comedians treat you differently from that? Like
from the doing well or from the bomb?
From both. Because you come in, you do well your first time. Yeah. Then you come in the second week, and now you have all this arrogance, right? Because that's what it is. It's not confidence;
absolutely.
It's arrogance.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're thinking you're the shit, and then you bomb. How did they react?
So the first week after the good show, everybody was cool. They were like, "Oh yeah, good job, man, good job. Yeah, I'm glad to see you doing stuff. That's great." And then the second week, it was more like, "All right, come on in, man. Like,
now you're one of us.
Yeah, come here. Now let's talk for real. Now let me tell you some truths you weren't ready to hear last week."
That's great, because it's funny that I'm glad that that's how it worked out, because a lot of times it's like when you see these comics that do that where they feel, you can tell that they're kind of arrogant,
right, a little high on
you
themselves.
Don't want nothing to do with them, and you're like, well, that guy is just too arrogant. Yeah, I'm glad they bombed, but I'm not having nothing to do with it. So I'm glad they were more welcoming.
Yeah, luckily for me, I'm not much of like a shit talker, so like all of the arrogance was internalized. You know what I mean?
Oh,
to where it's like it could only hurt me. You know what I mean? And that's I was
good.
I don't.
Because there are people that can be very vocal about it, like that have that like entitled, I'm arrogant, because of the arrogance. They're like, well, I killed last week. When do I get to go up? I'm here to headline. That.
Yeah, it's like that one guy at the beginning of like a UFC fight, talking all that shit, and then gets knocked out immediately.
Yeah, one punch and they're out.
I was just the guy who showed up and very quietly got knocked out.
That's good.
I was that guy.
That's good. But that you were able to get humbled like that, but in a good way, where it's like, oh, okay, now you kind of now have those more realistic expectations of comedy, and the people within the scene were more accepting.
Yes. It was. I guess that was more of an initiation than anything else. Because there is something in comedy where. It is not so much the bombing itself, but it's how you respond to it, how you recover from it.
Well, it's the same with doing well. I mean, how you respond to doing well is also important, because, again, if you would have been more vocal about doing well the first time and being the response from other people would have been very different. How you were treated
they would have loved
different.
seeing me fail. They would have would have just danced on my grave at that point.
Absolutely, yeah. They would have been like, "Yeah, it serves you right, you cocky son of a bitch." That's
exactly.
It's important to be careful how we respond to different things and react, because it goes back to what we were talking about when you said there's no right or wrong way to do it, but again, being like an asshole, and that's one of those things. If you're too super, there's a difference between having confidence and being super arrogant. You know? And when you're super arrogant, you're kind of an asshole, and that's a thing that can hinder you, because even though you might be good and think you're good, other people are like, well, I don't want to work with you.
Exactly, and humility does go a long way. In that moment, even though internally I felt all that arrogance and I felt I was so good and stuff, I've always approached things with a level of humility, and and just I approach people with that too, just in general. So like that saved me from becoming a comedy villain in my second week.
Comedy villain.
I do not want to be that guy.
Yeah, nobody wants a comedy villain.
No, we've got enough of them.
Yeah, we do.
We have enough.
We have enough of those. We don't need any more. That's for sure. When you have that was a good learning experience, and it seems like you were level-headed enough to, even though you were new, you were able to look at that objectively and say, okay, I gotta do things a little bit differently. This isn't give you those realistic expectations. But when you have a bad set, how do you try to analyze and try to get better and prevent things from from bombing happen?
Yeah, so when I have a bad set, man, I'm trying to get better at it, but I still take it so personally. It still sucks so bad. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, I wanted to do so much better. And it doesn't even have to be bad. It could just not be as good as I thought I should have done in this moment, in this room, and in front of these people, whatever. But what I try to do is not get. At first, I'm like, don't get too down on myself right now, because I'm 7 years in, and I'm still like, don't beat yourself up. Don't be too mad at yourself, Tyrone. Everything's okay.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. So I really try to think about, okay, where could I have in this time, in this club, in this moment, in this bar, wherever it is, where could I really have been better? Mm-hmm. Where was it just kind of this one was just in the stars, that it was going to happen at some point. This time it was the thing. It wasn't necessarily something that I did, even though I think personal responsibility is huge. I'm like, where can I be better? Ultimately, it's where can I be better? And I try to steer myself away from the writing, because one thing that I've realized for myself is that I'll write a joke, feel like, okay, this is good, get up on stage. Okay, it didn't go as well as I thought it did. Obviously, there's going to be some tweaks and stuff like that. But sometimes my first reaction is, I spent all that time writing that piece of crap joke. And I'm putting it right in the garbage.
Yeah, because you got to give it some time. You can't just, tell a joke one time, and if it doesn't do as well as you want, throw it out.
Nobody wants to hear about this, I guess. Yeah,
I'm done. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So,
you definitely have to give it time to develop, because it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good lead-in. So with that, what's kind of your process for an evolution of a joke? How long do you write a joke and then go tell it, but how long before you're like, this isn't going to work, or you'll shelve it and come back to it?
The process, I guess it depends on the joke. So typically, if I'm going from idea to joke, that writing happens pretty quickly, and I don't like to take non-jokes on stage. So if structurally it doesn't have a setup and punchline, I don't like, unless I'm telling a story or something, I don't like to take that on stage, because it doesn't give you an accurate picture of what the joke is.
Until you have an actual setup punch, you're not going to try to do it on stage. You're not just going to go up there with an idea. I don't. For me personally, I don't like throwing out premises that are kind of in a rough spot, just because I don't think I have the fortitude. If I throw out a premise out there and it doesn't do well, I'm never seeing that shit again. You know what I mean? You're just going to be sad when you're off stage. You're just going to be sad after.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But if I have a structure, if it has a structure, if it has setup and it has punchline and it has just those things where the audience knows, okay, if this were funny, that's where I should have laughed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
it has the structure.
Yeah. If it has that, then it's something where I can say, okay, I think I know why this didn't land the way it's supposed to. Because as you know, it can be the wrong word here or there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just maybe it's coming from the wrong perspective.
It can
that
come
kind of
from
thing.
Not being in the right order of your set.
Exactly.
Things like that. There's a lot of little elements that can contribute to a joke not doing well, or contributing to it doing well.
Yeah. So
it goes both ways.
And after that, once that's the case, and I'm like, okay, this is stage worthy. If I hear it and I think it's stage worthy, stick around and make it into some sets and stuff, then honestly, it's probably a process of months of finding that perfect way to where you're like, there it is, right there. There's the thing that I thought I had when I wrote the joke, but it wasn't done baking yet.
Yeah.
That.
And now it's ready for that late night set.
Right, exactly. Because I'm a real dork about just the writing and the craftsmanship of comedy. I'm one of those idiots that's like, oh, it's a comedy is art and it's a craft and stuff. I'm one of those guys who people roll their eyes about, because I'm like, back
one
there
of those purists that were like, oh, that guy.
Yeah. I'm in the lab like, well, how can I make this perfect? And, I'm just like I'm making a potion or something, But really, it's just it's my enthusiasm for comedy. Because when it comes down to it on stage, I could do all of I could spend hours and hours, writing everything to where I think it's going to be perfect, and then get up on stage and look at the crowd and be like, I'm not using any of that shit.
Yeah, it's not going to work. Yeah. Well, and something that I've come across, and it's, I'll have those moments where I'll work on a joke, and I'm more of a storyteller, so like I'll work on a story. I'll put a lot of the time and effort into crafting this magnificent joke, where I'm like, it has all the pieces and it's amazing, and when I tell it, it's gonna pop, and then I tell it and it gets nothing. And then I just have some random thought on the toilet, and then I say that on, I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. I should try that. And I try it, and it just crushes.
Yeah.
And it's like a joke, like there's no thought, but like I didn't try to. I wasn't trying to be funny. It just popped. It was a joke that popped in my head randomly, no effort at all.
Exactly.
And it crushes. And then I do that joke that I've put a lot of time and effort in, and you get nothing, and it's so sad.
It's frustrating because like you can't harness that moment of like that lightning in a bottle moment when it happens. I know one of my favorite jokes, the punchline that ended up becoming the punchline was something that just happened in a moment of riffing with the crowd, and I was like, I wanted to stop the show right then and leave.
I gotta go write this down.
Whatever's happening right now, I need to understand it more. I'm a very analytical person. I overthink everything, so I'm like, I need to go think on this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those moments are just so organic and they're so genuine and sincere, and that's where the best comedy comes from.
Absolutely.
When there's sincerity and when it's genuine and everything is just in that moment. It's why stand-up comedy, whether doesn't matter how popular TikTok is or YouTube is, stand-up comedy is going to always be a thing because there's something about that moment in the room, on the stage, between the audience that can't be duplicated.
Yep,
no matter
absolutely.
what you do.
No, absolutely. And it's a different, and even from watching comedy on TikTok or Netflix or YouTube, it's not the same as seeing it live either. Like there's a whole different energy being in the room and in that moment.
Yeah, 100%. And it's the thing that we chase. Like we chase that perfect moment because we know what it feels like, and the audience knows what it feels like, and if you asked us
it's
to
like
define
the Holy
it,
Grail. That's what we're after. That Holy Grail.
Can't define it, can't necessarily describe it, but like it's something that you know exists.
Yep.
And you're like, I know, I'm gonna get this thing. So it's the thing that like keeps us looking for that. When you find it, I mean, if you find that once, it can keep you going for months or years when you're just like, oh man, this is just that feeling. I'm going to get that feeling again. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, it's like a drug too, in the sense where we're after that high.
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's why we'll take so much punishment as comedians.
Which I feel like it's a little. Could be bad for the health too, like, you know what I mean? Like it's not.
They're like
destructive. There we go. That was the word I was looking for. It can be very destructive as well.
Because I mean, sometimes there's a stretch. I mean, I had a little bit of a stretch where I mean, I was going through things personally that I didn't realize were affecting my comedy, and so I realized at one point if I'm up on stage feeling too much, and then it's. Even though I'm not talking about what I'm feeling, it's coming through my jokes.
Absolutely.
People can pick up on it.
Yep.
There's something that's not being addressed. So there's something there's a tension in the room that nobody can put their finger on.
Yep.
So I learned that, okay, it's not good for me or for the audience for me to just like fight through and do comedy no matter what. It's like I need to make sure that I'm in a good
state.
spot.
In a good state. Yeah, I've seen that even with myself. I've had that same thing and I've had another comic friend of mine pointed it out one time. He's like, I noticed when you're having when you're kind of having a bad day or you're just kind of, in a bad mood, you're not, I can see it follow you on stage.
Yeah.
And then I watched a video where he, after that a set, and I was like, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
And even now, like sometimes I remember I did an open mic and I didn't do very well at the open mic, but it was my fault because the crowd was really weird, being kind of weird, and they weren't really responding to anybody, and just like they're just being weird. And I went up and addressed it, but I addressed it not in a fun, welcoming. Like I just basically scolded them. I was like, you guys are being dicks, you know, like essentially just like called them out, but I was in a mean way and very aggressive. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to do my jokes, I got nothing. And then after I got off stage, I was like, I know exactly why they didn't respond to these jokes.
Yeah.
And it's because I was very aggressive right off the bat. And it wasn't like, but it was in a mean way. Like I was basically mean.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny because I can tell you're a friendly guy. You know what I mean? Like we talked a little bit last night and stuff. Like we just met each other, but you're a friendly guy. You're easy to talk to and stuff. So I imagine that if you're mean on stage, it comes across differently. It comes across weird. Yeah.
You're
so
absolutely
it's like,
right.
So you create sort of this like adversarial situation that.
Yep.
If you were a mean person, you could take that and probably make gold out of it, right? Because you've seen people like you've seen comics who immediately get up on stage and they're like, "You are my adversaries" to the audience.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, because of who these people are, because of how they write jokes, because of how they riff with the audience loves it.
Yep.
They love this good guy, bad guy thing. But I'm with you though, where it's like I'm a generally friendly person, so if I'm having a bad day and I start to get a little bit mean, or if I start to look like I'm a little bit bothered, it's not very welcoming. It's not something that the audience appreciates. They pick up on it in the wrong way.
Yep, absolutely. You know? Yep, right there with you on that one. Yeah, but it's good that you know, as comics too, that we can see that because then you can, you know, if you're in a bad mood, you know, it's just like I've seen comics who've had like a big breakup or maybe somebody like a family member passed away or something, and they're like, I gotta go perform, and then they basically have a breakdown on stage. And it's not healthy at all, and it's not, you know, it's very uncomfortable for everybody, and it's like, you know, it's okay not to go up. You know, like you had a tragedy happen. Go deal with your tragedy.
Yes.
Do your thing. You don't have to come and get your 5 minutes. They're not going anywhere.
It's like when that reminds me of like when I hear people say comedy is my therapy.
Oh,
I'm like, that's a red flag. Don't do that to yourself.
No.
Comedy's not your therapy. Therapy's therapy.
Exactly.
Do therapy. Yes, please do that. That's like everybody who's listening, do therapy.
Yeah.
But comedy is not it.
No.
Like getting up on stage and losing your shit in front of people is not therapy. That is a cry for help.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. That is a breakdown, and that is a cry for help.
Yes. Yes. They are concerned for you. They are not having a good time.
Those laughs, that's coming from an awkward place.
Yes.
In an uncomfortable place.
Dude, the awkward laugh is such a distinct laugh.
It is. Absolutely.
And what kills me is there are comics who still can't tell the difference between an awkward laugh and like a real involuntary, like that was funny laugh.
Yep.
That's something that you got to develop as a comic.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're up there getting pity laughs and walking up on stage or walking off stage like
I crushed.
Yeah. Like, no, man, you got some work to do.
Yeah, that's why it's important to listen back sometimes, you know, because you can kind of tell, like, oh, okay, maybe those weren't the kind of laughs I thought I was getting. Maybe we can look more into that.
Yeah, and I like to use. I know some people don't like this on stage from a performer's perspective because it makes them nervous, but I'm a big eye contact person. You can tell so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a few people in the audience. You can just kind of like, I'll pick a few people and be like, all right, you're going to let me know how this is going.
Well, it's good to focus on people, too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, there's some people that can't do it. They just stare ahead at some dark spot in the room, and that's, you know, I understand. Anxiety is a thing.
Yep,
it doesn't always work.
I used to look down a lot when I was trying to think of the next, and a veteran comic pointed that out. He's like, you know, I noticed anytime you're getting ready to do a new joke, you look down, and then you're always kind of looking down as you're telling your jokes and thinking, and you're not connecting with your audience. Because and he was like, even if you can't make direct eye contact, at least look over them so it looks like it. And anytime you look away, when you do have that, and you look away, you're losing everything you gained because you're breaking that relationship.
Yeah, you just built all that rapport with the audience.
And then you look away and you lose it.
Yeah. And then sometimes if they misread it as something like not being confident or you know, like maybe you're out out of all the good stuff and now you're just kind of like scraping the bottom of the barrel, you know what I mean? Because those things, you know, an audience isn't going to, you know, really, they're not going to think about these things intentionally.
Yep.
But they also don't realize how much they're picking up on and how much they're actually understanding without even thinking about it. And if you look like you're not being confident or you look like you forgot what you're going to say or whatever, it's very apparent to them very quickly. And
absolutely.
They'll turn. Mm-hmm. But like you can't, like, it's a thing, keeping the audience comfortable is so huge because as soon as they're uncomfortable, they're like, ooh, I gotta get myself out of this mentally. I gotta look at my phone. I gotta, chug my drink, whatever it is to get myself out of this awkward moment. So like that's my whole thing as a comic. I'm just trying to create as few awkward moments as I possibly can.
Which I think that's a good plan to have. Try not to create awkward moments on stage.
Yeah. Like at the very least, like if things aren't going great, then I try to at least not make it awkward. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which I know that there are plenty of comics who they bask in that. You know what I mean? Like a couple of jokes don't land, and they're like, "I suck."
And everybody has their lane. Like they have their lane, and they're and able to do that. Like you said, like,
not me. For whatever reason, anytime I've dipped into the awkward where it's like something's just not working out, things quickly turn to like pity.
Yep.
And I'm like, how sad do I look right now? Like people. I feel like people just want to come up here and hug me and take care of me, and this is not.
Maybe I just need to get a hug instead of come tell jokes.
Yeah, it's like I don't need the audience to want to care for me. I want them to like
to laugh. This is supposed to be funny.
Exactly. They're like, oh no, this poor man, he's trying so hard.
Somebody give him a hug.
I saw this wasn't.
Invite him over for dinner. Something.
This wasn't me, but I saw a comic have what had to be the most beautifully sincere heckle just destroy them because of the moment. Everything was going really bad. Nothing landed, messing up jokes, stuff like that. It was a bad day. And then the comic completely blanked and was like, oh my God, I forgot everything. They had that moment and like in the microphone, and then somebody from the audience, a lady goes, "It's okay, you can do it." And I was like, "No, he can't do it anymore."
Not now. He might have been able to pull out of it, but now he's going to fixate on that comment.
Exactly,
and he's done.
No, you cannot do it.
That's ding, 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 knockout, KO.
Yeah, that's the
end credits.
And the audience, the helpers in the audience are always so, those moments bring them out, and it's like, oh, they don't understand that there's nothing they can do to help. The only thing you can do is laugh. Like don't. Like the
or
best
just sit there and wait. Patient. Right. Be patient and just wait
smile.
It out. See what smile.
Yeah.
Just wait it out.
Because you can do it is not what a comedy audience wants to hear.
No, or a comic that's failing.
It was like, oh God.
Well, this has been great. We're gonna wrap up. What's one of your favorite shows that you've done?
One of my favorite shows was just outside of Daytona, Florida. I was working with Bonkers at the time, and they booked me at a venue. It was a biker bar. I don't even know if it was in a town technically. It was like one of those things that's like in between two towns, and it's probably like sovereign territory. Yeah, it was a biker bar, and so I go in and help set up for the show and stuff. And then once the show is about to start, I look around, and there are literally 4 people in the audience, right up front. And so, the comics and I, we look at each other and we're like, all right, we're just gonna have a good time. We're gonna have a great time. Yeah. So I was hosting the show, and I just, with those 4 people in the audience, it was like, I guess because at that point there was no pressure to do well. Mm-hmm. I was like, this show can't be great, right? Because here we are in this weird ass bar with 4 people. What is this going to be? And it was just this. It was one of the first times in my career where I was just able to really smoothly go in and out of conversation, weave bits in. I was having just a conversation with these people, but they weren't really talking back because they were still into it.
You were having a one-sided conversation.
And I was like, man.
Vocally. It was still a 2-sided conversation because they were engaged,
they were laughing,
how they were supposed to.
Yeah, and it was super fun. And the other comics went up and same kind of vibe. It was just a really, really fun vibe in an environment I wasn't really expecting. Mm-hmm. And
sometimes that's what makes a show so good, when you're not you think it looks like a show that should go bad. Yeah. And you're able to just have that mindset where, you know what, let's just have fun. And then it turns out to be one of the most amazing shows.
Yeah. And that was it. And one of the women who was in the audience came up after, and she was with her dude. And she goes, the other 2 comics were black, and everybody in the bar was white. And she comes up and she goes, "That was so much fun. Y'all were so funny. I don't care if you're red, white, black, purple, whatever." And I was like, this is perfect. It couldn't have ended any better than somebody coming up and making that statement. It's like, basically what they were saying at that point is like, I'm generally pretty racist, but you guys,
you're okay in my book.
yeah. And I was like, oh man, what an ending to this show.
Oh, that's amazing. Final thing, I have the Art of Bombing Get Pumped playlist. It doesn't have to be a song that gets you pumped necessarily for comedy, but just in general. What's a song that when you hear it, it just gets you pumped to do whatever you need to accomplish?
Yes. All right. I don't think this is problematic because it's technically the Jacksons, not Michael Jackson.
Okay.
But it's "Can You Feel It" by the Jacksons is a song that like gets deep into my bones and brings out excitement. It's got this perfect bass line and then this guitar riff comes in. Just listen to it in the shower and see if you don't fall over in the shower. Awesome. It is one of those.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. It's so much fun.
Thank you for listening to the Art of Bombing podcast, hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr. and Josh Shirley for Blitz Entertainment. Nobody Had a Podcast called The Art of Bombing was written and performed by John Holt. The stand-up soundbite bumper was provided by Joe Nicola Music. Be sure to follow and subscribe to The Art of Bombing wherever you get podcasts. You can connect with us on the web at artofbombingpod.com or on all social media platforms at Art of Bombing Pod.